The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend.
Today I want to talk to you about The Wheel of Time. Recently, the trailer for the Amazon Prime adaptation was released, and I was simultaneously jumping up and down and holding back tears of excitement. But why? And why should you, dear viewers, give a shit about my hypothetical man tears? Well, that's what we're going to discuss today. Why you should read, watch, listen to The Wheel of Time. The Wheel of Time is a 14-book series plus one prequel novel written by Robert Jordan and later finished after his tragic death by Brandon Sanderson. It tells a truly epic tale about the Dragon Reborn and his group of friends from a tiny backwater town of Emond's Field. But also it tells the story of how the larger world interacts with these people, be it the woman channelers called Aes Sedai, the Forsaken, a group of insidious, backstabbing ancients brimming with ungodly power, or the Dark One, a malevolent being hell-bent on breaking the wheel and reshaping the world in his image, or even just the common folk along the way. On a surface level, the series is a bog-standard, high-fantasy, chosen one tale that uses a lot of the same tropes that were popularized by Tolkien in his Lord of the Rings trilogy. There are even elements that seem lifted straight from that trilogy. Unfortunately, I feel like that flawed interpretation has stuck with the series and has kind of left it pigeonholed, being left out of the greater fantasy discussion in favor of A Song of Ice and Fire or Lord of the Rings itself. You see, just under that surface, there is a rich story being told about a historically and culturally dense world, all seen through the lens of a huge cast of dynamic characters. But I'm all hopped up on caffeine and adrenaline from binging this trailer over and over again for like 2 hours straight. So let me back up and explain the gist of it without giving too many spoilers away. So the whole conceit of the Wheel of Time is that time is a wheel. Go figure. The world cycles through ages like spokes on a wheel and eventually returns to the same place and time, with the same people being reborn and reliving the same events. It's all inspired by some Eastern traditions, like the idea of reincarnation in Buddhism. The world of Wheel of Time is our world, just not as we know it. The time that you and I live in would be called the First Age, whereas the stories of the books happens in the Third Age. By that time, everything in our current age is only vaguely remembered myths and folk tales. Probably the largest difference between the worlds is, or at least stems from, the one power, the magic system of the Wheel of Time. In the time of the books, only women can channel the one power. This is due to a calamity that happened thousands of years in the past, in the Second Age, which caused all the male channelers to go insane and use their powers to bring about an apocalypse, literally shifting continents and destroying the land. Luckily, not all life was killed, but it was never the same. They are still born male channelers, they're just quickly rounded up and have their power taken away from them for the protection of everyone else around them. For this reason, sexism is a very real issue in the books, but unlike our world, it's completely flipped, with women having most of the power both magically and politically. Not only that, but where sexism in our world is completely arbitrary, based on arbitrary customs, in Wheel of Time it has a tangible origin that people can point to when enforcing the matriarchy. Men literally destroyed the world, which is why we are better. The books treat these ideas with such care, but they aren't afraid to explore them thoroughly, such that they are ingrained in all the cultures, in all people. Sexism and the matriarchy are just natural, prima facie to the characters, as they would be if you lived with such things for thousands of years. Imagine that. So that's just one of the ways that the world of Wheel of Time is created, but I could go on for hours about how everything else is built with just as much care. from each of the nations and their politics and their complex weave of enemies and alliances, to the cultures and their differences constantly being poked at as the story moves from place to place, among so many others. None of it is just set dressing though, as you might see in other massive stories of this type. All of it serves a purpose to the story, and either helps or hinders the characters in their quest. It's all so masterfully detailed that by the end of the series, I honestly felt like I knew that world better than I know the one I actually live in. And I really don't know how to feel about that. Either way, it's the mark of great world building. So, now that we've got the setting out of the way, what are these books about? Well, I can't go into too much depth without spoiling things, so I'll just give you the flyby view. The story follows a group of rural teenagers that get swept up in a giant quest after their hometown is raided by monsters looking for them for some unknown reason. They are in no particular order: Egwene, Nynaeve, Rand, Perrin, and Mat. And they're helped by a mysterious Aes Sedai named Moraine, her warder named Lan, and many others. I know there's people that are going to be pissed that I didn't mention Tom here, but what are you going to do? There's a prophecy that a powerful male channeler called the Dragon will be reborn and either defeat the Dark One once and for all or break the world again. It's kind of unclear which is the truth. Some people believe one and others the other. The Dark One is sealed away in his prison, but the seals on the prison are slowly eroding throughout the series, and his many forces are gathering so that the last battle between light and dark is ever present throughout the series as this catastrophic event looming just over the horizon. Unfortunately, I can't really go into more detail than that because it would involve spoilers. I mean, 14 books long. There's so much happens that it's kind of hard to give a really detailed synopsis without spoiling things. But like I said, on a surface level, it seems like pretty standard fantasy fare, right? That brief little synopsis probably didn't do much to excite you. But that's the thing about Wheel of Time. It intentionally plays into those tropes to analyze them and deconstruct them. If you listen to the audiobooks, at the end of each one, there's a small interview with Jordan, the same one for each book, which discusses this exact thing.
I wondered what it was really like to be tapped on the shoulder and told, "You were born to be the savior of mankind." I didn't think it would be very much the way it is in so many books where someone pops up and says, "Hi, I was born to be the savior of mankind, and here's the prophecy," and everybody says, "Oh, well, let's go then." I thought self-interest would play a big part.
You can tell that he cares deeply about every little detail, and honestly, at some points, you can tell that he might care a bit too much about certain things. For example, the way he describes nearly everybody's outfit in nearly every scene. It's a little bit much, to be honest. This series is a complete story, though, unlike some others, Looking at You, Song of Ice and Fire, and Kingkiller Chronicles. However, tragically, Jordan was unable to do so himself. He passed away due to a heart disease in 2007 after completing the 11th book, The Knife of Dreams. The work was monumentally important to Jordan. It was his magnum opus. So after his death, his wife and editor, Harriet McDougall, asked the up-and-coming fantasy author Brandon Sanderson to pen the finale of the series. What resulted were 3 final books which wrap up this massive story, weaving all the various plots together, some of which had been going on since the first book. And it's in such a masterful way that every time I get to the end of the series, I cannot help but weep. It's one of 2 series that ever made me do so. Seriously, there are multiple points in these last couple books where I cry like a baby every time I read them or listen. Even in death, though, Jordan was able to help out in his writing, as he apparently had a room full of notes, and even full passages written, including the final part of the epilogue. It's such a heartwarming story that adds so much to this already wonderful fantasy series that I couldn't help but include it in this video.
The last battle is coming. The only thing that matters is what you do.
So if you weren't already a fan of Wheel of Time, then you probably weren't aware that it already had an attempted adaptation. At 1:30 a.m. back in 2015, a pilot aired on FXX featuring Billy Zane. It can now be seen on YouTube. It was, how to say this nicely, fucking awful, and yet somehow amazing. I was actually surprised at the release date of this thing because it looks like a Hallmark movie made in the mid-90s and not the adaptation of a giant fantasy epic. It gave us these gems.
Oh. You can't catch me.
My wife and her games.
But you didn't hear about it for a good reason. Much like the Fantastic Four 1994 movie, this was made solely to hold on to the TV copyright, and without the knowledge of Harriet. She was understandably furious at this bastardization of her husband's work. So luckily, the bar is set really, really low for this new adaptation to pass. I don't know if you can tell, but I really want this show to be good. It's being produced by Amazon under the showrunner Rafe Judkins, who is a self-proclaimed Wathead. Hopefully he doesn't think plot themes are for 8th grade book reports, D&D. But seriously, if the trailer is anything to go by, this series should be great. Everything is already there in the text. All it needs is a faithful adaptation by someone that gives a shit. And given the scale and production value in the trailer, it looks like they might actually pull it off. Fingers crossed. Oh, and the show has already been picked up for a second season too, which is a great sign. So there's not a whole lot I can say about the actual show without watching it myself or revealing spoilers from the books, but I will say that basically everything in the trailer seems faithful to the material, which is great news. So one of the reasons why I felt confident in talking about Wheel of Time on this channel is that I know many of you here are huge lore nerds like myself. You love these huge, intricate stories. You love fantastic, dynamic characters, and many of you are here for Destiny lore. Well, in case you were unaware, Destiny is basically a fantasy property, just set in space and with some sci-fi elements in. So I promise you that if you're a fan of one of these, then you'll probably love the other. Reading the books is a huge commitment, but god damn is it well worth it. However, if you're a busy person, may I suggest the audiobooks. Now, I'm obviously not one of these purists that will tell you not to listen to them because that would be really hypocritical of me to do so considering, this channel. In fact, I'll tell you that the Wheel of Time audiobooks and their narrators, Kate Redding and Michael Kramer, are the two people I try to most emulate in my readings. They are far and away my favorite narrators, and they read my favorite series. So yeah, if you like audiobooks, if you like mine, definitely give these a try. Other than that, at the very least, I hope that you'll join me in watching and supporting this series when it comes out, despite the fact that it's owned by our overlord Jeff Bezos, who will probably leave us to start his own moon colony soon. It's a great piece of literature that I think everyone should get to experience. And who knows, maybe it'll be the next Game of Thrones. Except, it's already pre-written, so hopefully the ending won't suck. But I guess we'll have to see. And that, my friends, is why you should watch/read/listen to The Wheel of Time. I'll see y'all next time.